Good morning, Vietnam. And here I am back again from downtown Saigon in Vietnam. So I felt like I had to record my childhood trauma video, but a short version of it. Because as you know, anyone who watches and uses YouTube, it's difficult for almost anybody to watch till the end of a longish, and most of mine are over 30 minutes and close to an hour. So I reduced my notes and I'm going to read the critical statements and facts and thoughts I have on childhood trauma and how it's affected me. And I've already reduced the number of pages of my notes from 11 to 6 or 5.5. And I will read from the selected and discuss the selected ones, and then I will add them at the end of the video, and I'll make it as short as I possibly can this time. So, childhood trauma. My first note is something that I became aware of while I was writing and researching this particular video, and all these are quotes from me. It also appears there is a selective awareness and intelligence when it comes to coping, dealing and resolving childhood trauma. Also, I came across some notes while I was writing, and again, this video, and it's six simple signs of trauma. And not necessarily severe trauma, but general trauma, which does affect your life every day. Number one, you think too much. You apologize too much, even if you're not doing anything wrong. You can't remember your childhood. You bury your memories to survive. You cannot accept compliments. Do not believe them. You are never good enough. Never ask for help. Always do things alone. Have no one to rely on. You are not humble. As you know already, I wrote this and did this video and researched because of my very negative reaction to all the posts and videos of Dr. Gabor Mate. And this is what I write about him, just in summary. As I said, I responded to in detail to 4 of his videos only, and I write his theory on how to overcome, resolve and move on from childhood trauma. To me, this is an obvious tell. He looks so sad. He's slow most of the time in talking and is incomprehensible so many times during his videos. As I have shown in those videos, if he has discovered how to resolve childhood trauma and how to help you obviously overcome it, and we know that he has major childhood trauma, then why is he looking and talking like someone who is still so devastated and has not overcome his childhood trauma? Here's some of my thoughts on pain. Concluding on Dr. Mate, you are now trying to develop all these therapy concepts for you to overcome your trauma. Some more thoughts on pain. Number 1, pain changes people. 2, it makes them trust less. 3, you gained weight by bad diets, as from living and growing up with your parents, and then you cannot lose it, and you don't understand why, of course. People think they are more special than you, and they shut you out for any reason crosses their mind at any time. While pain may change people, it does not have to define them. But I think it does. We are simply not aware of it. After I read an article on childhood trauma, some guy on in the YouTube video, I couldn't watch it just from the title, something about some expertise on 11 facts or reasons behind childhood trauma. And I write here, I believe childhood trauma is the same as dreams. Nobody can tell you about what happens after the traumatic event, how you process it, and the effect it has had on your life. So, as in dreams, the connection you make from them is all your own. Sigmund Freud tried to interpret dreams, which I think was an absolute disaster, because in the end, they are your personal dreams, and you dream about different things depending on who you are, what you want to remember, how you want to remember it, and childhood trauma is the same. Now, I listed what I thought was 16 behaviours or actions that you can look at, you can read and take note of, and maybe help you work through your childhood trauma in some way. Here I've only listed 6. I'll read them quickly. You may have created the negative outcome, but was it from childhood trauma? You have to work that out for yourself. This is the one tricky question even Dr. Mate mentions. Can you make a connection with your childhood to your behaviour? If you can, great. But some trauma is too deep, or simply there is no obvious connection. And can you do it without help? The third one I mention here is, how do you distinguish what is childhood trauma? I don't think you can. The only way not to get so hurt the next time is to look at your behaviour long before the event, see how it unfolds. What part did you have in this negative outcome? How can you make it positive? This one's about my mother. I don't know why I included that. It's not necessary. Primal therapy is a very particular psychological therapy that, of course, does not work for all. And in fact, I don't think it really can work for all, but only a small percentage. But I did deeply experience its positive effects, and I believe in it 100%. With this connection, I think I would have, without this connection, I think I would have led a very total disconnected life and even been much more unhappy. Finally, crying is the most natural connection you can possibly make to a childhood traumatic event, or any traumatic event. It releases your pent-up feelings, especially anger, frustration, or any pain of any description. It is the safest method and sometimes the most effective. I made a connection only recently while I was working on this project, and that is that I have an inferiority complex. I knew I had it, but I made the connection that my father, also had an inferiority complex because of moving to Australia from the mountains of northern Greece. He never could adapt to that lifestyle. He used to be a goat herder and shepherd, and suddenly was working in factories, and I think it destroyed him emotionally. So watching him a few times interact with people and even friends, I felt that he was demeaning himself, and I realized that's what I do. And I list 3 things that will make you traumatic no matter what. And it can affect your life in so many different ways. If you can never make the connection, which particular trauma from these three things that I'll list in a second, great, but I don't think you can, because they're all encompassing and can affect you significantly in ways you can never imagine. 1, my father never spoke to me. 2, he never said anything good about me. And 3, he hardly ever touched me. I mean, ever. These three things will destroy you emotionally as an adult. I don't care who you are. That sort of trauma is devastating. I state that most of the time today, in my adult life, all my life, I can't say I've been very happy at all. Even now that I know so much about myself and my childhood trauma, it still cannot be happy very often. Many years ago, around 30, 40 years ago, a good friend of mine said, life is just a collection of happy times. And I think that is a perfect explanation of being happy. The rest of the time, you try not to be unhappy, and that life is simply just hard work. Then I give some examples of growing up, graduating, and I state that in this sentence that how much I hate my father, but if you want to read it, it's up to you. But I have this sentence: he controlled the family through fear, especially me. I think because, again, as I mentioned earlier, we moved from Greece, from the mountains in the north to Australia. And if you want to see what describes my father to a T, except for the fear part, is a movie that came out back in the early 70s called Padre Padrone, an Italian movie, translated to My Father, My Master. And this guy, when he was 5 years old, got dragged up the mountains to take care of his goats. It's a great, great movie with a fantastic ending. Talk more about my journey. Just because you know certain things about yourself, it doesn't mean you're going to change your behaviour. And I mentioned this. Not that I've gotten much smarter. I'm still getting fooled by women and not taking care of my finances better. They seem to go hand in hand half the time. I just know where the behaviour comes from. I try to deal with it the best I can and move on. But it's still happening. But I hope the next time it will not. So I then quote Ronald Reagan again. I'll just mention about my friend who passed away. My best friend passed away 10 years after. This was in about around 1991 from cancer. He was so traumatized from his beatings from his parents while he was growing up to about 13, 14. That he got cancer and his body totally collapsed under the weight of that childhood trauma. And I think that can happen to anyone. We have no idea it'll happen to us. There's no genes. There isn't anything anyone can stop you from getting an illness that eventually kills you that was created by childhood trauma. And then I go on, I mention HIV, and that is only because, and I mentioned 2 other examples of governments trying to control us, and I will be doing a video on HIV AIDS soon. I mentioned my second wife. You talk about childhood trauma. She found a total FB woman lawyer. Ended up costing me $200,000 for nothing in the end. I write, I'm still working on myself. I still find out things about myself and still getting better, but very slowly. Will I ever be cured or close to cured? Absolutely not. There's no such thing. So then I mentioned an article actually posted in 2007. And I mentioned it, I saw it, and it's titled, Are All Childhoods Traumatic? Social media may overemphasize the prevalence of trauma. This is probably true, but it's total crap as well. And I couldn't read the whole article. I just started to read it and realized he was just complaining. I don't know why he was complaining about it. I guess he felt that his childhood trauma didn't affect his life. Yeah, what a lot of crap. So there's two reasons why I dislike this article. Now, one, I do believe everyone is traumatized in childhood, some more or less severe than others. And two, do you need help from this traumatic experience? It depends on a number of factors. And I write, 1, does or how the trauma affect your current life? If it is, to what degree? Can you solve it without help? Can your friends help you through it? What degree of help do you need to process this trauma? Example, do you drink alcohol every day? Do you smoke every day? How many cigarettes will keep that pain at bay? Do you see a family therapist? Or do you spend more money and see a psychologist or a psychiatrist? Or, if you're a total wimp, you don't come home until your family's asleep. There was a smugness in his writing that turned me off immediately. The so-called professionals and experts, just because they talk or write, we have to believe them 100%. Professionals and experts have been trying to control us for hundreds of thousands of years. Try and read a doctor's prescription or understand what the governor of a reserve bank is saying. Economics mumbo-jumbo. It is true that on social media and other internet platforms, experts are popping up everywhere, like Dr. Gabor Mate, who is an expert on childhood trauma, but only that which is related to drug addiction. And he has helped, I don't know, a few thousand people. And that is great, but don't venture outside of that. I have called out not just him, but Dr. Mike, another family doctor who suddenly also thinks he can cure childhood trauma. And now I mentioned 3 articles. 2 of them are on twins. One is titled, One Twin Was Hurt, the other was not. Their adult mental health diverged. So even identical twins can react to trauma, childhood trauma, completely different and grow up completely different as well, even though they have the same traumatic event. Another is to explain discordant twins and discordant twin growth, an overview. And finally, discordant twins, diagnoses, evaluation and management. So all 3 articles are on twins. If you want to see how, in fact, trauma can affect you and nobody can tell you what it all means, how you got there, how you're going to deal with it, even if your twin brother was next to you the whole time and was getting the same treatment from your parents as it happened. 2 sentences from the abstract of the last one. Approximately 16% of twin gestations have discordance of at least 20%. We identified 14 risk factors for divergent growth that can be categorized as maternal, fetal, or placental. Anyway, I can't remember the article that well, but I did read it, and it was great for you to understand how you can be affected physically. I finally write in the long version, I wish everyone to live in an environment that they start to get more control, have more happy times, and live a less stressful life in their daily lives. Thank you so much. I will add these to the end of this video and see you in the next one. And I hope this will help you because it's much shorter. Goodbye.